So that's a great question. I think the adoption is going to pick up dramatically in the next 12, 24 months. And there's a few reasons that are going to drive the adoption. So a lot of people talking about security from a VCC perspective, and that's true. The aspects that I find as a former leader of a large finance organization that I think are really of value are the added data that you can wrap around those virtual card transactions. So in addition to the data that you can wrap, and you've already talked about security, it's the auto reconciliation, it's the auto application. So if you think about, oh, I've issued this virtual card for this purpose, which aligns to this ledger account. So I can actually do things that take some of the reconciliation, some of the manual work out of the process for my accounting team, so I can take work out for the accounting team. And automate some of that work. So to me, it's more about the additional data. And I think as people find out that there's opportunities to gain efficiency, I think you'll see the adoption grow and grow and grow, right? And so security, the data that you wrap around the transaction. And then the last one is just in general terms of what the whole intent is for virtual card, and it's the intended use. And I can control that use, that intended use. So where it came from originally was hospitality was a big one for T&E budget purposes. You could limit the spend, you knew who the vendor was. There was a lot of benefits to it. The last application that really hasn't picked up is cross-border payments, and then the application and how we can simplify the payments for international and cross-border payments. I think VCC will play a part there as well. And so I think a lot of people are still putting together how to incorporate virtual card. They're learning about virtual card, they hear about it. What is this new sexy way to make a transaction? The last opportunity between the buyer and seller in getting the discrepancy of payment terms, where the seller wants their payment and the buyer needs 30 days. So if you think about credit card or virtual card in general, it's just a form of extending credit. And so I think leveraging that opportunity by the buyer, I think that'll extend as well, especially if you have a macro downturn and people start to need those additional credit terms. Well, I think the relationship will improve. I think it connects the natural tension between buyer and seller, where the seller wants payment immediately and the buyer wants some sort of extension of terms or credit, and that's what virtual card will give them that option. The other opportunity, if you think about the intended use of virtual card and it's a specific reason and you've indicated that and you've wrapped some of the data around the intended use such that you can automate the reconciliation, take some of the accounting work out. I think the other opportunity, it will get you to methods of discounting, routing for preferred payments, and meaning that, if you pay within these 10 days or 30 days, whatever the timing is, for example, as the seller, I want you to pay immediately. Well, the buyer doesn't want to pay immediately. So I've given you a net 30, for example. Well, okay, now I can align on those terms. I can take advantage of a discount and use my virtual card and make the payment. And then I'm going to pay for it in 30 days, but you get your money now. And so if you think about that intended use and that reconciliation of cash, I think that's a huge benefit as well. And I think that'll start to bring the buyer and seller relationship together. In terms of acceptance, I think one of the hindrances to the acceptance has just been the manual work and all the effort around doing the reconciliation and the parsing of the virtual credit card transactions. And I think that's getting better. And it's one of the reasons that we've obviously developed our product. Yeah, so I think this is a natural byproduct of paying via virtual card. So I have the extension of credit, so I can pay immediately, assuming I have the approval and the limits on the card. And so it allows me to pay faster than I would have otherwise because I'm not waiting on cash flow to settle that debt to the supplier or settle the invoice to the supplier. So I think it's just a natural form of credit extension. So if I'm in the accounts payable organization, absolutely it's going to speed things up. And I think you're going to see that more broadly where people are adopting so they can pay faster. So I think it ties into what I was talking about previously, which is you know, the natural tension between buyer and seller, and where the suppliers are like, I provided you the goods, I want payment. And the buyers are like, well, I'd like to take advantage of those terms and pay you and extend that payment term. And so I think as a buyer, I want to pay via my virtual credit card for a variety of reasons. But I think a large driver of that's going to be the extension of float, if you will, or credit, just naturally as a credit card or virtual card does for you. So I think that's the primary reason that they want it. And I think this is something the suppliers are going to kind of come together with and learn and understand. Well, I think if you look at the growth projections, I mean, there's massive growth in the virtual card market for all the reasons that one can imagine with a virtual card, whether it's the terms or security, additional data wrapped around the transaction that makes reconciliation easier. So I think I would be concerned naturally because of that growth. And if I'm not accepting those payment terms, what am I going to lose out on?